The escalation caucus, that's the focus of tonight's angle. All right, I want to clue you in on something. Earlier today, the Ingraham angle fielded an inquiry that was both perplexing and revealing from our dear friends at Newsweek. Apparently, this intrepid reporter, some fellow named Gerard Kayonga, is based in the UK, was stunned that the angle had the nerve to raise questions about the wisdom of sending these Soviet-era MiGs from Poland to Ukraine. Laura warned of it causing deaths, and not just the Russians. What did she mean by this? Mr. Kayonga asked. Well, what part of this is confusing? Obviously, escalating the conflict doesn't just mean more Russian troops would die. It means more Ukrainian civilians could die as well. Now, if Putin is clearly the megalomaniac that many have made him out to be, and he very well may be, then who knows how he'd respond to America engineering that MiG transfer? But, of course, the unknowns are part of every war, which is why every step must be carefully gamed out. Now, Mr. Kayonga's questions, though, didn't stop there. Laura also opposed the claims made by Tom Cotton and Mitt Romney on the importance of doing this. What does she believe could happen, and how could things escalate? Well, as far as opposing Tom Cotton and Mitt Romney, big deal. First of all, we love Tom Cotton, but does Newsweek only approve of certain Republicans opposing other Republicans? After all, the press corps has a hot and steamy love affair going on with Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger. So are so-called reporters really this lost? Putin's entire justification for this inhumane and cruel invasion has been concern about NATO encroachment toward Russia. And thus it would seem logical that sending MiGs from a NATO member country into Ukraine could give him a "see, I told you so" moment. So why is it unreasonable to posit this real possibility? Answer: it's not. In fact, it's the responsible thing to do. The question we shoot right back to Newsweek is a simple one. Why aren't people who call themselves real reporters asking the uncomfortable questions? Didn't they learn anything from the last time they threw in with the Warhawk consensus? I should know. I was one of those people who reflexively joined the wage war at any cost bandwagon, after 9/11. Anyone else feel like this is all just kind of a back to the future moment at this point?
Why do you feel that the West is not completely embracing that and saying this is the war and we need to get into it?
Even with this additional aid that you're providing today, it seems there are still other options on the table. So why hold back?
And the Department of War over at NBC even pressed Jen Psaki yesterday.
There's a growing chorus of voices saying that now is the time. Has the president reconsidered his stance at all at this point?
They have several squadrons of mission-capable aircraft.
I don't think that's enough, Jen. You heard President
that are not being, Kristen, that are not being utilized. This is the assessment by our Defense Department.
Now, if I were Zelensky, I'd probably be appealing to Americans by invoking 9/11 and Pearl Harbor as well. Anything to get more weapons and buy more time. I get it. Putin's assault on civilians is pure evil. We all see it. So Zelensky's calling for a no-fly zone? Totally understandable. But when American politicians try to use this thing of sending MiGs to Ukraine as some kind of litmus test for patriotism, we find it repugnant, as is anyone trying to pretend that none of this poses a massive and potential risk to America.
You're telling me logistics, that's what's standing between innocent babies and mothers in Ukraine? We can't give jets to pilots who are able to fly them. We can do it.
I feel fully committed to doing everything in our power to help defend the people of Ukraine against the monstrous actions of Vladimir Putin. And that means getting the people of Ukraine the MiGs that they would need to fight and shoot down some of the Russian aircraft.
History will judge us if we don't act now and if we don't act strongly.
Military strategists who specialize in battlefield tactics game out every move, and every step of the way they ask serious questions like, will MiGs actually help turn the tide in Ukraine? And can Ukraine even maintain these older fighter planes? Or is the media's position that it's better to consider these issues after we've spent billions replacing Poland's MiGs. Now, this spend now, ask later approach is how the U.S. ended up without a victory in Iraq and in an embarrassing defeat in Afghanistan. We spent trillions. We lost thousands of our brave troops. We lost contractors and hundreds of thousands of Iraqi civilians to fight a war that created an exodus of Iraqi Christians and also the rise of ISIS. Saddam was gone, a great thing, but much of Iraq was as well. A total nightmare. This is precisely the time, now is the time for vigorous and open debate. And one voice that should be heard is that of U.S. Navy Reserve Officer Blake Herzinger, who writes in Foreign Policy that most of Ukraine's fighter aircraft are still in the fight, flying approximately 5 to 10 missions per day using a pool of about 50 jets. Russian aircraft are flying nearly 200 missions per day, but keeping their planes primarily within Russian airspace. Both sides are likely exercising extreme caution to avoid ground-based air defense systems. Given this knowledge, a score of Soviet-era air superiority assets would not meaningfully improve Ukraine's military situation. And there's more. Poland's MiGs are decades old, and many were hand-me-downs when the Poles received them. Fighters, especially older ones, require considerable maintenance, as well as an ensured pipeline of spare parts and munitions. Ukraine's capability to sustain those extra aircraft is unclear. So asking how Soviet-era MiGs will hold up against newer Russian jets with advanced avionics and defensive capabilities is an entirely rational question. So why is the establishment so afraid to answer it? Why are they afraid even to allow the question to be asked at all? But there is at least one Democrat who dared to raise a legitimate point. Washington Congressman and chair of the House Armed Services Committee, Adam Smith, flatly stated, the MiG wouldn't last a second in Ukrainian airspace right now. Look, maybe he's right, maybe he's not. But the American people must be told that the risks of escalating things with Russia are not negligible. It may, in fact, draw us even closer to a direct confrontation with Russia, which, as we all know, is a nuclear power. So is this what Americans really want? If not, isn't it incumbent upon their elected representatives to stop and do a meaningful risk-benefit analysis? And as for the laptop warriors at Newsweek, perhaps they wouldn't be writing for a digital-only publication if their writers had the ability or the desire to step back from the unfolding tragedy, as horrific as it is, and identify all the parties who are prolonging a war where there are no winners. Oh, and I almost forgot. Mr. Kayongo only reached out to us for comment less than 20 minutes before he published his silly little piece about us at 7 a.m. Such is journalism in 2022. 5th grade antics, 4th grade intellect. And that's the angle.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.